All right.
So I'm going to make a little header here for the recording. This is Tuesday, January 9th, and we're going to have a demo on how to add notifications be pushed to the bullhorns from different Sakai tools, presented by Mitch Golden of Noodle Partners.
Thank you. I apologize. There's a bug in the big blue button screen share. So this blue line across, I guess you can all see it, is always been there. It belongs on the bottom of the screen. It somehow winds up in the middle. The guts of this are all in a file called bullhornserviceimpl.java. Basically, the way Adrian did it, and I wish he were here to present it, is that there's a table that gets created called Bullhorn Alerts. And the way we've done it, I assume people have actually seen what it looks like. There are two kinds of alerts. One is academic, the other is social. I'm not entirely sure that we should continue to do that or just combine them and save a little bit of screen real estate. But this is what drives the display on the screen, and these are triggered when things are found in the event table. And you can see here there's a list of the kinds of events that we are looking for: assessments, publications, comments, announcements, assignments, etc. All these are the types of events that will drive something to get put up into the Bullhorn alert. And basically, if you have an event to trigger off, there's not actually a heck of a lot to do. This array of handled events contains all the different types of events, and every one of them has to. There's a sort of if-else chain here for each kind of event, and you have to just figure out what you want to put in the Bullhorn alert for that kind of event. So here's a friend request, right? You will have to create here a link that tells you to go to the connections tool, and then you insert that into the do social event is a thing that's going to insert one of those Bullhorn events into the events table. This thing is run, if I'm recalling correctly, as a hook on the events table when things are added to it. And so this doesn't require every time a page is loaded. These things are cached. So you just create those, and they're they go in. Honestly, when Adrian was writing this, the hardest part actually was that many of the things that he wanted to link to did not have appropriate level of deep linking capable. And so a lot of the work that he had to do, and Steve, I think, did some as well, Steve Swinsberg, they had to create the deep linking so that these tools were exposed appropriately so that you could go straight to the thing you wanted to alert.
So, Mitch, that was what Adrian wrote in the email thread. It'll be easy enough to add some more alerts as long as you can factor a URL to the source of that alert.
Right. And so, let me make one other comment here. The only alert that I heard was discussed as being missing was a publication of or an a, additional resource being added, things of that nature. Now, those are actually easy to put in. I think, in fact, we had them there, and I personally found them more annoying than useful because we already, just to be clear, we already carry up there anything that generates an announcement gets up in the bullhorn. So the question is, what do you want to, this stuff isn't coming out of nowhere. It's, people have been using Sakai without this very nicely for, many years now. And those things just, when the faculty member wanted somebody to know something, they made an announcement for it. And in many of those cases, the appropriate things create their own announcements. The tools already did. And so we didn't think that you needed an additional Bullhorn alert on the event itself because the announcement that was created was sufficient. I wasn't clear on whether somebody had used this and said, oh, there's this thing that's missing, or whether somebody merely thought that there's something should be added but hadn't actually tried it. Because one of the ones I did see, I was pretty sure after it was added, people would say, no, I actually don't want it because it's just pestering you. So, that's neither here nor there. People can make those decisions. But it's, as you see, there's hardly anything. I mean, it's a few lines of code for each one of these kinds of things. You just need to, you need to be able to say which site it is, which tool it is, and what URL you want. That's kind of all there is to it. I mean, it isn't really anything very complicated or deep. There were one or two subtleties, but I don't think people run into any further of those. Like, if you have a Bullhorn alert saying that you have a friend request, or that, and then you, without dismissing the Bullhorn alert, you go and accept or ignore the friend request, like here you confirm it, you want to delete the alert for the original friend request as a side effect. But that, I don't know if there's anything else like that, so you can see it's just create the alert, just insert the Bullhorn alert, either to an academic, or to a social.
Cool.
Right? Here's a social.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an academic. There were here, this one here, let's see, this one was an announcement, and you didn't want to get Bullhorn alerts if you're the one making the announcement, right? So that was there. The only other thing that you will notice here up at the top is that we have that thing we developed called the Commons. And I wanted to make sure when Adrian implemented it that the Commons could be generating alerts here, because people wanted alerts when people responded and so on to Commons posts. But you didn't want to require the Commons to be added to the instance of Sakai. So this is using some level of reflections and creates a Commons Manager here, to determine if the Commons is actually present in the instance of Sakai or not. So that's sort of a special case, and people may want to do things like that with other optional tools. But that's sort of beyond the normal kinds of things. Mostly, you're just going to add a event down here to the Bullhorn alerts types. And you can see, as you see here, this is where you, this line here is the one where it looks at the configuration to see if it should be doing anything. If it's not, if the use Bullhorn Alerts setting isn't turned on in the Sakai.properties, none of this is going to happen. So, is that what people were looking for? Do people have questions? And if you type, I can't see. I guess I
Nobody has any questions so far. I also put it in the chat. And if they don't, I still appreciate the presentation. I've got it recorded so that if there's a future, but you brought up a really good point, Mitch, in terms of the non-technical aspect of it, which is that the community probably needs to review what we expect, what notifications we would expect to be there in order, that we'd want to have it on by default. Which I suspect is what we'll want. Sean looks like he's asking a question. Should the types of events that appear be controlled by the institution and configured through Sakai.properties?
I mean, I guess in principle, yes. But I would think, let me say this. I would think at the end of the day, the way I would think you go with all this is that, actually, I'm going to take back what I said. I actually think that that's probably a bridge too far, at least in my opinion. That, like, there just should be a way that it works, and it just makes it more complicated and more bug prone to think of all the cases. Like, this is idea here is to kind of make it easy for users so that they don't actually have to visit the announcements tool to see what the announcements are. And, like, I should be told somewhere when somebody has made a friend request, so I would argue that the better question is whether you should be able to turn on and off features of Sakai in general, because if they're there, like, then the bullhorns should reflect them. So, like, again, just strictly my opinion in terms of usability, but why would you turn off friend requests in the bullhorns and leave friend requests as a concept? Like, if you have friend requests, they should go somewhere where you're going to see them. And if you have announcements, you shouldn't have to go somewhere to see the announcements. The announcements should come to you. So I think that at the end of the day, the way this would play out is that, this isn't going to get big. What's going to happen is people are going to decide to trigger this by making announcements. Like, that's where it would really play out. And then if you don't want to make an announcement for something, don't make it. Like, test due dates and so on. If you don't, for whatever reason, want announcements, that's already there, as I recall. But that would just be my 2 cents. Like, I don't know. I would strongly recommend, like, somebody trying it a little bit and seeing how they feel about this stuff.
Yeah, by the way, about 2 minutes left allocated for discussion.
Well, unless somebody has any other questions,
Cool, thank you. It seemed like Sean does have another question. Great.
Sure.
He says, how are events other than commons handled if those tools aren't being used / enabled in the system?
So what are you thinking of?
I think Sean's in listen only, so I'll wait for his chat. Here we go.
Well, let me make a point here, though. It's not a question of enabling that caused us to have to write this stuff. The point was that Commons is actually, at least at the time that this was written, and I'm showing you the code from Sakai 11 because that's just what I've looked at. Commons was something where the whole Commons object might not have been compiled. It was a Sakai contrib. Maybe it will stay that way. So if it's not enabled, then it's still, there's still, the objects are still there, and you can still import the you could still you can still up here import the appropriate Sakai packages. The Commons was different because it didn't even have to be present at all. So if you have a thing that's not going to generate, that's there but you're not using it because it's not enabled, I don't know why it would be generating events. So I don't know, maybe you have a specific thing in mind.
Yeah, and needs to be the last question. So Sean, I don't know if you want to, I see that you had written the case you just gave to Mitch before he started responding.
Well, sorry, what was the case? A thing that was enabled?
Oh, he says don't worry about it now. So I think you probably answered his question.
Got it.
Or we'll look into it later, but yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
as I said, everyone should know I'm mgolden at noodle.com. And Adrian and I are both available to answer questions. So yeah, if there are other issues, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'll post this up onto YouTube, our YouTube channel later.
And how do I stop? Stop. Here we go.